Welcome to Your True Calling. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Dr. Michelle Chappell, a psychologist and a rock star. I've helped thousands of people find their true purpose by discovering their one-of-a-kind superpowers. Each week, I'll share tools and client success stories to help you find gifts you don't know you have so that you can thrive in a career that fills your soul and passion projects that make you feel whole. Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be talking to you again today. It's been a while. I had to finish writing my book, The Power of Authenticity, and I just got it into my publisher, and we're going to be getting it out in 2026. I'm so excited. And it's given me some time to think about where we are in the world right now and what we can do about it. I think if you are like me, you might be feeling a little disempowered. There's so much that seems to be going on around us that we have no control over. It might be tempting to give up hope, but I am here to tell you, please don't do that. Don't ever give up hope. Giving up hope means giving up power, but you always have more power than you think you do. When I was young, I studied psychology at Georgetown University, and we happened to be studying a lot of Skinner and behaviorism and rats pressing levers in Skinner boxes and that sort of thing. And I remember that my professor asked me to give a talk on a topic that seemed meaningful to me. And around that time, there was something called learned helplessness. Martin Seligman was studying it, 1967. Actually, I wasn't going to college in 1967. I was going to college after that, but that's when this research was really big. So have you ever heard of the concept of learned helplessness? Because I think it really describes where people are today. Originally, what they did is they had an experiment where there were 3 groups of dogs, but really we'll just talk about 2 because one of the groups was a control group. In the first group, the dogs were subjected to random electric shocks, but they could turn those shocks off by pressing a lever. In the second group, we say that they were yoked to the first group because they received the same random shocks. The difference was that they could not stop those shocks. Pressing the lever or anything else would not make a difference. And then what they did is they took these 2 groups of dogs and they put them in something called a shuttle box. And a shuttle box has 2 compartments in it with a little barrier between them, just a few inches high, low enough so that the dogs could jump from one area to the other if they wanted to. So they started them out in the area where there were shocks administered to them through the floor of the shuttle box. Now, the dogs that were in group 1 just immediately jumped over the barrier and got out. But the dogs in group 2 just sat there and took it, passively whining and moaning. I'm not an advocate of using electric shocks in research with animals, but I still think that this research has some very important findings for us. The reason why the dogs in the second group didn't do anything is because they felt like nothing they did could end the shocks. They'd been conditioned to believe that. They had been conditioned to have learned helplessness. And in fact, thank God, some of the people that were running the studies went into the shuttle boxes of the second group of dogs and would move their little legs and sort of remind them that here you can move, you can get out. And eventually they would jump over, but they had to be shown hope. And I kind of feel like that's where we are right now, funny enough. I am in Portland, Oregon, and I'm not sure, but I think the rainy season might have just started today, so it's very, very gray here. For the last 3.5 weeks, we've had DHS helicopters flying over our neighborhood at night. And now we have government-looking black vehicles from Florida parked in our streets. I happen to live a couple of miles away from the ICE facility. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. And I don't want to make a partisan statement here. This is not what I'm trying to do. All I am trying to do is to tell you that from my point of view in my day to day life here, there's nothing but peace and it's going pretty well. People are pretty laid back here. They're creative, they're artistic. So I and my neighbors, we don't understand why this is happening. And it's very, very scary to think that troops are going to come here when really there doesn't seem to be any reason for them to be here. Again, I am not trying to make a political statement here. I'm just trying to tell you what it's like to live here under these circumstances and seeing what I see. And given that the helicopters have been over our neighborhoods for so many weeks, you would think that they would see that there wasn't anything going on here either. So, learned helplessness, right? I mean, I don't even want to get out of my apartment. Why should I? It's raining, it's gray. I do suffer from seasonal affect disorder. What can I do to make a difference? I mean, it doesn't matter. Our government officials here have been asking the government, the federal government, why are these helicopters here? And they've never gotten back to us. I've learned this through the newspapers, local newspapers. So, what can I do? Well, one thing I can do is to tell you this is my reality living here in Portland. And it is scary, but it also makes me start to think, why is it for the last few days I have felt so helpless? I think it's because I have felt like there's nothing I can do that makes a difference in this situation. But that thinking is too small. So I want to take a step back and take a larger point of view. As you know, I'm a big fan of Carl Jung, and I'm even on the board of the Oregon Friends of Jung, and we have a speaker coming tonight to address the troubled times that we live in, and I can't wait to hear what she has to say. But what I want to share with you right now is how to look at this learned helplessness from a Jungian point of view. We all come into the world with unique gifts and a unique purpose. And what happens is, as we're growing up, often someone will shame us for one of those gifts, or they'll criticize us for those gifts, or they'll make us feel really bad about them. It's almost like electric shocks, aversive events. And so what we end up doing is we take those gifts and we stuff them down in the unconscious and we forget that they're there. What's really interesting is that we start moving through life as only part of who we are, not our whole selves, because we don't have access to those golden abilities. Very often, they're strengths that could move our lives in wonderful directions and even make the world a better place. So, this podcast, I mean, the whole purpose of it has been to try to teach you how to find those gifts so that you can be more fully who you are and own your full power rather than walking through the world with only half of your power or 3/4 of your power. Now, what's interesting is in this podcast, I have interviewed people who were able to find those gifts and follow their purpose rather easily. Some of them had some struggles, but most of them knew who they were and were able to move forward pretty effortlessly. And there's a big difference between the people I've interviewed and the people that I work with as a coach and as a psychologist. People I work with don't have access to those gifts. They don't know that they're there. And so they feel less fulfilled with their lives. They feel unhappy and they know that something is missing, but they're not sure what it is. And they definitely feel less powerful, learned helplessness. So often, one of the ways that you find out what a gift like that might have been is to trace back to your childhood. Every single person that I've interviewed here and every single person that I've worked with had a special gift when they were young. The difference is the people that I've interviewed on this podcast had a pretty nurturing support system. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them. And they were able to move, as I said, forward using those gifts and have, lead pretty nice lives. But the people that I work with didn't get that support. The family didn't approve of those gifts, or somebody, maybe a teacher, would shame them. And that's a big difference. So, social support makes a big difference, and it only takes one person to see something that you don't see about yourself for you to break free from all of this. All of this is to say, it is possible to break free from learned helplessness and own your power. One of my gifts is kind of getting me out of a jam today is that I am able to speak pretty well about the psychology behind what is happening in ourselves and in our times. And just talking to you about it right now is lifting me out of my own learned helplessness because I'm using my gift of communication. I'm coming more into my full power right now by using that gift to say what I see. And I have to tell you that that was one of the gifts that was suppressed in my childhood because I was raised in an abusive home and I was not allowed to say what I was seeing. But I found that gift later in life and it has served me very well. I've been a college professor. I work with clients now. I've given talks. The power of words, that is a power I didn't have access to when I was younger, but I found my way there. I'm a more complete version of myself now. And by using that gift with you right now, I can even feel that power coming back, even though I was feeling kind of, well, helpless a few minutes ago when I started this podcast. The other thing is, I have a sense of agency. I didn't just sit in the shuttle box and get electric shocks like those dogs. I moved my legs. I was able to jump over that barrier by making a decision to make this podcast today a sense of agency, to share my truth with you, just so in case you don't know and you're interested, what is happening here in Portland right now. That makes me feel more powerful. It works that way for you too. When you use a gift that has been suppressed, you feel more powerful because you're tapping into more of your power. And the other key word is use, utilize, take action. You always can do something. Now, I'm going to switch gears a little bit here, but hang with me because it's all going to come together. I saw a movie about the Dalai Lama a few nights ago called The Wisdom of Happiness. It's in small release in theaters in the United States. It's already been shown in Europe, and I believe it's streaming right now. But there's something very powerful about seeing it with other people, with community. Now, I am a practicing Buddhist, and I am a big fan of the Dalai Lama, just like I'm a big fan of Carl Jung. And I have to admit that I was expecting to go to this movie with a handful of my friends and feel kind of blissed out because often when I've seen him in person, my mind really calms down and I stay steady. But that's not what this movie was about. This movie showed a lot of footage of how he and his Tibetan people were kicked out of Tibet by the Chinese who were killing them, massacring them, genocide, and how he is now a refugee in India. It also showed footage of global warming. It showed footage of wars. It showed footage of a lot of horrendous things that are going on in our world right now. And all the way through it, he was talking and sharing his wisdom. And he said a couple of things that really made a lot of sense to me. One is to have hope. Even so, to have hope that we can turn this around. And he was playing the long game also. So, for example, we can start to teach children in kindergarten how to meditate. Why is that important? Because meditating, and I know this firsthand, can help you watch your emotions and you can get a handle on your negative emotions and not need to act out on them. And if you think about it, there's a lot of that going on in the world right now. So that was one of his solutions. The other thing that he said that really got my attention was to tell the difference between the actor and the action. Even though the Chinese killed so many of his people and have banished him from China, from Tibet, he has no hatred or anger towards the Chinese. He separates the action, what they did, from the actor, and he's able to forgive the actor. And that is a lesson that I am learning in my own life. It takes some time, it takes some work, but it's worth it because you don't carry so much resentment and dark feelings inside of you. And that is part of what is responsible for the world that we live in now. So even with all of this bleakness that he was sharing with us, he was still laughing happily in that sparkly way that only he can do. And he was really asking us to take action in a world that needs our help. He was asking us to have hope. And I am reminded of Jane Goodall, who just died recently at age 91. She wrote a book called The Book of Hope in 2021, and she was touring California to talk about that book to help raise awareness about the environment. I watched her documentary, and I've always wondered, why did she stop working with chimpanzees one-on-one and sort of switch to this more global stance that she's taken? And it turns out that, a couple decades ago, at least, she was in an airplane and she got an aerial view looking down at the chimpanzees, and she realized, they're not going to make it because the environment around them is changing and becoming more hostile, and they're just not going to be able to live. So she switched gears and started fighting for the climate. And so she was giving a talk about hope at age 91 in California just a few weeks ago, and died living her purpose, using her gifts and living her purpose. And I have to say that in a world that can seem bleak and overwhelming, these two luminaries have the same message for us: hope. Take action. Don't give up. Every little thing you can do matters. And from, I think, a Jungian perspective, and I deeply believe this, you have a gift that nobody else has in the world. And maybe you're finding out what it is, or maybe you don't know what it is yet. But ultimately, when you find that gift, it will connect you with your power. And you will most likely want to take action using that gift, maybe to get a job that fits you better than, the one that you're in right now, or maybe to move to a city that suits you now that you have a better understanding of who you are. But more than that, I do believe that you have a piece of the puzzle that can contribute to making the world a better place. And it doesn't have to be a giant piece. I mean, all I'm doing is making a little podcast a day. Who knows how many people are going to actually listen to this? But I know I'm making a difference doing what I can. And I think it fills you with a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning, a sense of agency to bring that gift that only you have to the world to help make it a better place. And you don't even have to try. I worked with one young woman who became a kindergarten teacher because she was really able to see the world through a child's eyes and reach her children, and she became a good role model for them to be their authentic selves. So this is my pep talk. I am surrounded by Jane Goodall and the Dalai Lama in saying, don't give up hope. Don't settle for learned helplessness. You don't have to stay there. You can always do something to make a difference, even if it's just being kind to a cashier or being kind to yourself. Take the time to get to know yourself better. Give yourself permission to be who you are, and take one tiny action today to make the world a better place. I made a podcast. What can you do? Okay, listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. I wish you so much love and positive energy on your journey. Thank you for listening to Your True Calling. Please leave a review and share it with your friends. From my website, yourtruecalling.org, you can follow me on social media, learn more about my music and my coaching, contact me to find your superpowers live on the air and help me produce future episodes by funding me on Patreon.